I told you there was free money out there to make your movie? What would you say? Too good to be true, right? Well, it's not. And they're called tax incentives. And I'm going to break it down for you here on who, what, when, where, why, and help you maximize the spend of your budget. So a little backstory on tax incentives. Really, these didn't start up until around the 1990s, where the U.S. was really trying to keep folks in the United States because a lot of productions were going out of the country, UK, Australia, Canada. So around 2002, Louisiana jumped on the bandwagon and started it. And I got to tell you guys, I moved out here in 2003, and I was just floored when I had to turn around and go back to audition in Louisiana. Or I was auditioning for things in Louisiana. I mean, everything had gone where I came from. It blew my mind. But nonetheless, it was a huge success. There were so many films, big films that were done, over the next, 5 to 7 years over there. And what everyone learned was that, gosh, it was a win-win for both production and the state. The productions get their incentives, their discounts on services and labor, and the state gets its influx of cash. The economy gets a boost. Fast forward, now everybody and their mama has a tax credit in the U.S., Canada, all over the world. And it's great because some of the international tax credits are just insane, and they're great. And some of the locations that you can get, it's just amazing. But let me get down to it here. Let's talk about the types of tax incentives that we have out there so that you're in the know of some of these buzzwords. We have grants. We have rebates, we have refundable tax credits, we have transferable tax credits, and we have the non-refundable, non-transferable tax credit. And you're probably wondering, like I was like, well, if you're not going to refund it to me and it's not transferable, why do I even want to shoot here? California is one of them. It still blows my mind to this day. Look, yes, you can come to the state, you get discounts on everything, but if you had any money left over, you're not getting it. All right. I'm sorry, I ramble. I start to go off on things, and that's just me. So let's talk about how tax incentives work. And I want to break it down into 4 easy steps because you guys know I love steps. I love visuals. And here we go. Research, application, compliance, and reimbursement. All right, so research. This is the biggest part of tax incentives, is really figuring out the right fit for your production. Obviously, you need to think of your script and how it works with your narrative, and does the state have everything you need for your script? And then what are the various percentages, and what are all the hoops that you have to jump through? Because there's a lot of rules in some states, and some states they make it pretty straightforward. So let's jump right into a website that I want to share with you, www.castandcrew.com. And I don't know why I just said www. I think I just like to say it. Let's go to that site. Enough talky there. Okay, here we are, castandcrew.com. Go to Services tab, and down here, scroll down to Incentives Map. Incentives Map. Y'all, I have to tell you, this is the best site I have seen yet for researching tax incentives. Take a look at this. It's beautiful. They take you through Canada. Canada has its own sets of rules and regulations. And then the US of A. Look here. So let's just look at Cali. We're here at Cali. So you see how it breaks down. What the incentive here in the right-hand corner there, it gives you the cap, the minimum spend, and the project cap. Let's go down to good old Texas. You see Texas offers a grant, and same sort of breakdown here. Louisiana offers you a refundable tax credit. Let's go into Georgia. See, Georgia has a transferable tax credit. So you see these are the 4 types that I just went over. You got different states that have each of those, and tells you who, what, when, where, why. All right, so this thing is fantastic, but can I tell you something else that's even more fantastic? This comparison tool. Go here. We're going to get on it. All right, so let me show you how you can use this. and let's use some of my favorite states. I have shot in Georgia. I'm going to share with you South Carolina because I am a huge fan. And let's compare it to California because I want to show you how terrible it is here. I promise you I'm not knocking Cali. It just amazes me how they do not make it easy here to shoot. Or not everyone has access to the cash. All right, so look. And within these are hyperlinks. Look, I'll click one here for you. So if you're like, I really like Georgia, it goes even more in depth here. So Cast and Crew has done it right. So let's go back to my original page here. So look, Georgia has a transferable tax credit. South Carolina has a rebate. And California has a non-refundable, non-transferable tax credit, blah, 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 blah. And basically in a nutshell here, this is a tax credit where you have to file a tax return and then they will give you the tax credit, or they will allow you to bank that tax credit, which just means once you've valued it and everyone's on the same page of how much it could be, you can actually sell the tax credit for a percentage on the dollar. The rebate, this is a cash rebate. I have received both of these. I'm a huge fan of South Carolina because I got to tell you, they turned that sucker around in 90 days. I'm going to give you an example of a budget I did there. Unreal. I mean, I shot there twice and I got like $800,000 in cash rebates like within 6 months. Ridiculous. And Cali, I just can't. Oh, let me show you why. So this shows you the next portion here, what's eligible there. Look, in Georgia, you can shoot about anything. Movies, commercials, music videos here in South Carolina. And you're limited just to movies, direct to streaming, some animation, webisodes. See? All right, project criteria. Georgia's pretty straightforward. It's just 20%. 20% across the board. Expenditures, payroll, all of that. You get an additional 10% here in Georgia. Once you put that Georgia Peach on there, they have seen your movie. You pop that on there, film there, they'll tack on another 10%. South Carolina, you have to break it up a little more. They made me work a little bit more for my money, but wasn't hard, doable. And then California, I mean, look, gosh, guys, I mean, it's like 5%, 10%. All right, qualified expenses. So these are the qualified expenditures. They give you a list. They'll tell you exactly what does qualify, what doesn't, and they lay out here in briefly in these paragraphs. And then the program's guidelines as far as caps. So Georgia's got all kinds of money. There is no expiration on it. You've got to put the Georgia Peach on there, and it does require a CPA audit. I did not have to do a CPA audit with South Carolina. We just made sure our ducks were in a row. They had a state auditor. We talkie, everything was good. Got our money. No sunset date here. Look, California's going to take this away in 2030. There's some money. There's about $330 million in there. They're going to spend it till then. Maybe they renew it. Maybe they figure out how to make it more accessible to the rest of us. All right, additional considerations. This is just because you have to apply. That's our next step, so I don't want to get too far ahead here, but every state has its own requirements. Like in Georgia, within 90 days of photography, you have to apply, and then you have to begin filming within 30 days. So there's all this little minutia and stuff here you can read through here. So isn't this fantastic? So we just did the comparison tool. I just showed you the map. I love this site. I love it so much. So good. It just makes it really easy to okay, I don't know, just pick Alabama and Indiana and then Texas. You see with this map. Come back to my map here because I don't want to leave this. This thing is so fun. But like I said, like if I want to do, I don't know, let's pick Utah. There you go. You can get immediate information on this, and then like I said with the comparison tool, I just picked those 3 states, but you can put any 3 in there. Okie dokie. Isn't that wonderful? Don't you love that thing? I love it so much, and it is just It makes it so easy. So for you to do your research, really dig in there and really assess all of them, it just helps you line everything up really clearly. All right, so the next step is applying. So you've picked the state. Let's use the state of South Carolina. You go, I think this is perfect. It's great timing on the rebate. So you just make sure you're applying within the parameters that they have laid out. Most programs do require pre-certification. South Carolina did not. So this was something where I could just put my application in. They pretty much approved it. I shot in April. I think I put it in like 2 weeks before and we were in. So again, do your research, follow those parameters, and that part is fairly easy. The next part is compliance. So compliance is about understanding what's qualified, what can I spend that does go towards this rebate. And this is where I find a lot of people make mistakes, and then they undervalue their rebate, and they're like, why did I only get $100,000 back when I thought we were getting 200? So this is where you really need a great line producer, great accountant that understands these incentives. Let me show an example of a budget that I did for this production this year, so I can show you exactly how I group things, and so you can wrap your head around like an average rebate for, say, $1 million, $1.3 million spent. Okay, come with me. This is an example of a budget I did this year in South Carolina for a pickup, and I just wanted to show you over here how I group things, or what we mean by qualified expenditures. Take a look here. So these are the categories that I used based on the rules for South Carolina, where we had South Carolina expenses, that's SCE, the non-resident expenses, the SCPR is South Carolina payroll, and then South Carolina non-resident payroll. That's how I decided to group things into this budget, and that is how we calculate this number here. So on a $1.38 million spend, I calculated about $230,000 there. So to give you an example of how that works, look at location expenses. This is something you would definitely think is, I'm in the state of South Carolina, I'm spending money on locations in South Carolina. All of this number, this 62,000 or 63, let's round, does qualify as a South Carolina expense. And it did. So you can see how I had that, and I had these categorized here. Ooh, trying to stay within my recording window. You can see how that checkbox, you see how that, bada boom, bada bing. See how that's there. And that's how I group that sort of thing. Not trying to get too deep on how you do this sort of thing. Just want you to know. I need you to know so that you're like, oh, so basically when you hire your line producer and you're working through this, that producer needs to understand the incentives. They need to understand how to group the incentives so you can come to this number here of 228, 292. And I actually spent more. So this is an example of, this is the minimum spend. We ended up spending more. So once we do the audit and we put everything in, it's actually better, that it's more and not less. So we did end up getting about $350,000 back on that. So that's a nice example for you there of how compliance works. So the next step in that is, yes, I have it budgeted. Yes, I have an estimate here. You just want to make sure you have good housekeeping. You have to make sure that you keep receipts, everything's clean in your ledger, and that will really help expedite the audit process, because we had such a rock star team. That's why I was able to get this was a cash rebate within like 30 days. They give you 90, they say 90, but our stuff is so good, we got our money back so fast. Tax incentives can be a game changer. Just make sure you don't fall into the common pitfalls, which is just not understanding what the qualified expenses are and not having your ducks in a row and having your receipts and everything in order. Those are really the two biggest things that I find that people make mistakes on, and then that's when we're getting less than what was anticipated. And depending on the incentive, right? So as a producer, you go out and you're looking to get an investor, and you've done this math, right? You did your budget. You're like, I'm letting you know that we're going to get about $250,000 back. and now you are just encouraging them. So now the investor on a $1 million movie, and you know you have, let's just use round numbers, 200,000 in soft money, then really he's only putting in 800,000. Well, that's a pretty good sell, right? He's like, sure, okay, but obviously it's called soft money because he still has to put the $1 million in. We still need that money to spend, and then we get that back. Now, what if you made a mistake on your budgeting and your incentive? That's no bueno. So that's why it's real important you have a good team on your hands to make sure you don't fall into those issues. All right. So our final step here is reimbursement. You've done your research. You have done your application. You've complied. You've got a beautiful audit. Everything's clean. The last thing is to get your money back. Whether it's a tax credit, whether it's actual cash rebate, it's an exemption, you've done it. You've made it to the end and you've saved your production money. Kudos to you. You are an excellent producer because you saved money, right? Yeah, and so I hope this video is very helpful to you. Tax incentives can make or break your budget, so do your homework, plan ahead, and reap the benefits. So if you found this video helpful, please put your comments below. And if you have any questions, please put them below. I can help answer those. And again, I love doing these videos for you, adding another tool in the toolbox, and just one step closer into making your vision a reality. So thanks again for coming to the Producer's Desk. And as always, remember, together we create.